Alright, gamers, welcome. Alright, I understand. Numemon's giving you trouble at your local scene because some bozo bought it when it was like $4 and now everything is pricing you out of playing the deck. And so you hate it. It sticks to the board way too much. It DP reduces you. It checks multiple times, goes really wide, stuns you. Ugh, I fucking hate this deck. Well, let me tell you, as an avid Numemon player, allow me to teach you what you need to do to consistently handle this deck. So first off, the first half of this video is just going to be me talking about cards that are good in the matchup. Okay? That's it. Cards that are good in the matchup. I'm going to put them on this little tier list. So, cards that are instantly game-winning. There's not too many of these, if I'm completely honest with you. There's not. This I can play through and play around most tech cards, which is surprising. Slows them down. Cards that, if used, especially in conjunction with another one of these, will probably completely stop them in their tracks, but otherwise, just is like a little hump that they have to kind of work around. Overrated. Cards that I see people kind of playing a lot of, and I really don't think they're that great, if I'm honest with you. I think they're kind of mid. And then bad. Cards that are bad. I think that if you're playing these, I don't know why. Stop. Don't do that. They're not good against this deck, I promise you. And so now you may be thinking, a couple of these cards don't seem like it makes sense. Like, what does Blitz Omni have to do here? Well, Blitz Omni represents a concept. Okay, some of these cards will be representing concepts. So when we get to them, I will kind of explain the concept. So Blitz Omni represents killing your opponent, and I know what you're thinking. Yeah, obviously, you fucking idiot. Jesus. What do you mean? Yes, that is like the best tech card. And yeah, killing them is game winning, obviously. But killing them is a lot harder than you think it would be. I've lost a single set against Red Hybrid because of an awful misplay of mine today. But aside from that, I haven't dropped a single set against Red Hybrid, against Luga, against Yellow Vaccine, and against like a lot of these other like decks that try to go big and cause a lot of problems for you and try to kill you quickly. That doesn't work. Just trying to kill your opponent, you gotta go really fast because there's a lot of stun tools in this deck. And honestly, I think just trying to ignore your opponent completely is bad. I think just trying to go for your full combo is probably pretty bad. I think you're going to get screwed a little bit. When I get some Mega player who just tried to ignore me, I went into Venus 3 times that game. Venus, Ruin Mode Venus, and I ended up taking the whole set in about like 30 or 40 minutes. Just because I saw they were trying to kill me, and I just said no. I said don't do that. Crimson Blaze. Crimson Blaze is an insane card against most decks. And so this deck plays a lot of small guys close to the ground, and on deletion effects that play Digimon by effects. That Crimson Blaze is great against both of those things. It's very overrated. I think Crimson Blaze is very overrated right now. I think Crimson Blaze is really good if they go super wide. If they go super wide, it's good with a bunch of small dudes. Otherwise, unlike most decks that play by effect, the times that we will be playing by effect are usually on your turn. So you'll have to Crimson Blaze before deleting our stuff. And depending on how wide our board is, it actually doesn't help that much. And if we check Crimson Blaze in security, it may stop us from killing you, and it may not. I think I checked a Crimson Blaze today, and I just hard played the Numemon Rusher, and then Luimon a Ukomon out for a game, and there's nothing you could do about it. It was just, that's the way it is. I think Crimson Blaze is okay if you can Crimson Blaze and then start deleting their stuff, but it is a 6 cost option that is decreased by 1 for every other Digimon. So, I mean, it's okay. It's alright. I think if you're playing Crimson Blaze, you might as well just play Death X. I think Death X is just a better Crimson Blaze, other than the fact that its security effects can maybe save you. Pillowmon and Gatsumon and other like floodgates for stopping by play by effect. I think they're okay. I think they're good. I think it's like probably like here. They're fine. They're pretty easy to get rid of. But it makes us think in like ways of how do we want to get rid of them, depending on the amount of memory you give us. Like if you play like Pillowmon turn 3 or like Gatsumon, not turn 3, turn 1. So you go like, did you evolve them back, play Pillow or Gatsu, and you're like, ha, they're not gonna be able to play by effect. Well, I mean, they'll just play like a Jerry or a Numemon, and then Digivolve on top of that with a Monzemon, and then that'll delete your Pillow, and then we're back at square one. Nothing really changed. Nothing really matters. Again, I think that Pillowmon is one of the ones that if you can play Pillow and then start deleting their stuff, that's kind of busted. That will destroy a lot of their game plan going forward, unironically. This is a great deck card for Numemon going forward, but we'll go over that in the deck list that I'll be doing in the future. And a lot of these plays, I don't know where I actually want this like part of the video, the tier list part of the video to be. I think it's gonna be in the first half, so we're just gonna keep talking as if it's the first half. Going forward, in the latter half, I will explain the typical combos that you would use Pillowmon in for Monzemon X antibody, and then I will also kind of explain when you kind of want to use a Pillowmon and like how you want to use your Pillow or Gatsus. But anyways, Grave Hate. I think Grave Hate's pretty mid. Not gonna lie. I think there's only one good Grave Hate card in that you can run as a tech against Numemon, and I think just slowly dealing with their graveyard, not that great. If they have a Numemon X in their inheritables and it gets deleted, you have if that is the only Numemon card on field and in grave. They can just play it right back out. They can just play that card back out, and they still at least have level 4. Yeah, you can put back their platinums, and that's like annoying, but if you're using your time to use the Black Gatomon Uber, you are down bad. You're very down bad. Speaking of bad Grave Hate, Omnimon Merciful Mode. This is a disgusting card against Numemon X antibody, and just Numemon in general. It deletes their body, and then bottom decks 10 cards, so you can stop them from getting their on deletion, which is one huge. I think stopping them from getting their effects is massive. It changes the tempo of the game entirely. But bottom decking 10 cards now, that's like 10 Black Gatomon Ubers. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of cracked. Bottom decking every single Numemon that they have, things get a little bit more difficult. Things get a lot more difficult. I think this card is game winning. I think it is game winning. And I run it as a tech in my own Numemon deck. So there you go. Speaking of game winning cards, I mean, hey, listen, Rune Mode. What does it just say? They can play around it a little bit, but God, is it difficult to do it. It's really difficult, and if you get the 10k, they can't play around it anymore. There's nothing they can do about it, and it is rough. It's very, very fucking rough. Not great. Not good at all. Memory blockers, very overrated. I think that if you're playing a memory blocker for Numemon X, very, very mid. It's not gonna be great. I think sometimes it'll stop them from getting too memory, but a lot of times they'll play out the RB1 Monzemon. They'll delete your memory blocker and then gain the 2, because you can choose what order you do it in. So you need to have 2 memory blockers, or they just can't be trying to play out the RB1 Numemon or Monzemon. I mean, I think it is pretty bad. Not great. So if you're playing memory blockers for this deck, bit rough. Next up, Digimon Emperor. This guy's cute. Fuck. I really want to put him in slows him down tier. He does slow us down. He does. But I mean, I think how do I explain this? He turns off your breeding area, which is huge. It is. But you take the time to play Digimon Emperor and then promote an Ukomon. It is only 1 memory you gain. And they play an Ukomon in the back, and they promote that. that's 0 memory, net neutral, which is good. Don't get me wrong, it is solid. And a lot of the times, their level 5s and lowers are what's going to be getting deleted. So you will be getting draws off of that, which is nice. So I think it is, you know, I'm talking myself into the slows them down tier. I think it is a slows them down tier. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty solid. Numemon is in here. This card, I think we're going to go ahead and put very top, tippy top of overrated. I think it's a good card in the sense that it's a bad card. Let me explain. Let's run through a hypothetical scenario. Okay. Your opposing Numemon player is ahead on tempo. Okay. They delete your platinum using a Numemon X antibody effect. Great. You play out a Warmonze. They got like 3 or 4 bodies out. They're threatening lethal. Warmonze stops them in their tracks. Great. Sick. Very, very cool. And then you digivolve their Monze X. Oh my gosh, insane. Super, super good. Or maybe you digivolve one of their like Nume X's to get rid of the inheritable. Get rid of the effect. Kind of cracked. Kind of crazy. What do you do on your next turn? What do you do on your next turn, bud? You think they can't delete the Warmonze? Maybe they can. You can't go into Venus next turn. You're limiting yourself to only going into a platinum from this Monzaemon. You have to digivolve into plat. Okay? Digivolve into plat, and then what? What are you running? Alright, that means you have a Ruin mode, a Merciful, a Quartz, Death X, something in hand. You're stalling. Okay? It's a good stall. The Digivolve is really good. And I think that it puts it over the edge with the 5 cost or less can't attack. It'll definitely buy you a turn. It will buy you a turn. But man, is it just not feeling it. Just not feeling it. If you're playing it, you're probably playing it for other decks. This Monzaemon X and Warmonzaemon is just not. He's not it, Chief. I promise you he's not it. Venus, though. She's it. She's in right now. In fact, she's very in. In fact, am I? Yeah, I am. I feel comfortable saying that Venusmon is single-handedly the best card in the mirror, and also just for stopping them. And you may think, okay, well, why? Well, let's explain. They can't give you minus DP or security attack. So they can't slow down your game plan with the Monzaemons. Okay. They can't play out Digimon by effects using the Monza X. Okay, that sucks. That does. They can't gain memory off the Platinum. They can't use Ruin modes on Digivolution. They can't use Merciful modes on Digivolution. They can't use Quartz Mons on Digivolution. They can't Digivolve into Death X, so they have to hard play it, which may not be what they want to do. And like, getting to those guys is already difficult enough when you can't gain memory off of the Platinum. The Platinum being a 1-cost Mega is really good. And you're like, okay, well, what about the on deletions? Where are they swinging? Can't swing into Venus. They got security attack -1. Can't swing into security. They got security attack -1. They have to have specifically the Monzaemons underneath their Platinum or their Monzai X's. And so the play is, I guess, Monzaemon into Monzai X to gain the security attack +1. They don't get the play effect. They swing into security to proc their Nume X to play out their Platinum to what? What now? Did you have a Ruin, get no effect, pass? Like, there's no great way to play around Venus when it comes to getting tempo. It stalls your opponent better than Warmonze does. It stops your opponent from generating huge amount of tempo when it comes to Ruin mode. It's like almost on par. I think it's a little bit worse in that facet than Ruin. And it handles a lot of their on deletion effects for a turn. It doesn't deal with them permanently like Merciful mode, but in a tempo based deck, losing a turn is devastating. Losing a turn is completely awful. Speaking of losing the turn, this is going to be a concept right here. All right, this blue flare concept. The concept is stunning and source stripping. Source stripping and stunning. Source stripping is pretty good actually. The only thing it doesn't really work against is the Nume X. Not Nume X. The what's him call it? Platinum Numemon. You can't source strip the guy because he is the effect himself. But I mean, him aside, source stripping is pretty solid. The scary thing is just getting the once they kind of like establish their like little loop of Platinum Nume for Monze, get the Nume X underneath it, and then that gets deleted for Platinum Nume, and then Platinum Nume gets deleted for Monze, get the Nume X underneath it. Like once they kind of like establish that little loop, it's a little more difficult to deal with them. But if you can just prevent that from happening, period, it's pretty good. I'm gonna put it in like the slows them down tier. I'm gonna put it like probably like right here. I think it's certainly up there for sure. Fanglong. Fanglong is not a concept. This card is by itself. Okay, so I'm gonna rate this card right now. I want you to know, I think this deck is super cool. I think it's super good. I think it has a great matchup against Numemon X. In fact, if it was just this card in theory against Numemon X antibody in that whole deck, it's like, it's up here somewhere. Okay, this card by itself is game winning. Probably like right here. Probably like right here. And I'll explain why. Fanglong bottom decks cards from its security, not from its security, from its trash to get minus 4k to the opponent's board on play and when attacking. And so they need to bottom deck typically 2, sometimes 3, depending on the board. Very rarely will they ever need to do 4, but they can. They can end up needing to do 4. The trick against this deck, well, I play Merciful mode. I play some Grave Hate to deal with it. And you kind of just have to play a little bit differently. You have to be very conscientious of like who you're deleting in their deck and when you're checking security. I think it changes the game plan in the way that you play. And because of that, I think its matchup is good against us, but it's not unwinnable. And in fact, I still think we're slightly favored as long as you play the matchup appropriately. If you play the matchup just as you would play any other matchup, though, you will probably lose because Fanglong is a house against Numemon X antibody and the whole deck as a whole. The whole deck as a whole, God. Machine Dramon. This is gonna be another concept card. Sorry, Machine Dramon players. I think your deck is bad. I have lost to it before with Nume, but I think it's bad. This is gonna represent D-Digivolution. Targeted D-Digivolution. I think it's pretty overrated. It's pretty overrated. I think just D-Digivolving your opponent by 1 to 3, pretty mid. I think 3 is where it becomes good. I think it's okay. I think 3. Because then you'll usually get through to like the Nume X and trash that. But if you're ever just D-Digivolving 1, it's pretty whatever. I ended up losing to the D-Digivolve 1, mind you. But that's because I didn't play around it. I thought about it. I thought about playing around it, and instead I went for a Satsuki because I wanted the extra memory on my turn. And that was very greedy of me. And because I played greedily, I ended up losing to the D-Digivolve. But if I didn't play greedily, my opponent would have been at the same amount of memory. I would have had 1 less memory at the start of my turn, but I would have still had the Nume X, and I would have been able to play out a Platinum and then go into like a Quartz or like a Ruin or something like that and handled it really, really well. So I think it's okay. I think it certainly has its uses and can be game winning against your opponent. And just to clarify as well, as I'm going through these, I want to explain real quick. If your opponent misplays and steps into any of these concepts or cards, like killing them, they could misplay and you can just kill them. And I think that that'll get you some games for sure. But I'm working under the assumption that your opponent is trying their best to play around what they can, and they're playing as perfectly as they can. In which case, like these cards, there's not much counterplay. These cards, there is some counterplay, but they're like more difficult to work around. These cards, there's some counterplay. There's a good chunk of counterplay actually, that they can kind of deal with. And these cards, there's a lot of counterplay, and they're just really not that affected by them. But anyways, going forward, Levia X. is the as I'm thinking more and more, this card. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We'll say this for last. I'm gonna go over a whole in-depth synopsis on why I think this card is not game-winning, but it's still a good card. This is a concept card. It just represents bouncing your opponent. It hurts. It's super annoying. I don't care. I have Venus. I have Ruin. I'm not gonna let you be bouncing me. Nice try, Ulforce. Nice try, Melga. It just doesn't. It's not. It doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it. I'm sorry. In fact, congratulations. You're the best of the bad tier. I think if you're playing Melga this format, you're playing Ulforce this format, you're trolling, and that's okay. Listen, have fun. I think if you're playing Machine Dramon, you're trolling. I think that's good. I play the fuck out of the Dark Master deck. I think the deck auto loses to like 3 or 4 cards in the current 3 or 4 decks in the current meta. So fun, so good, so good, so good, so good. I love it so much. I love it so much. But yeah, there's just too many ways for them to play around what you want to do, and they can just really force you to not be able to get good bounces in ways that you want them. Death X is the king of overrated tier. Death X is the king of overrated tier. He is. Your opponent can fully play around it. The only reason it's the king is because it is multi-digivolve, so it digivolves the board, which is really nice, and it is consistent deletion, so they have to. Your opponent has to consciously think about what their end board is going to be before they pass it back to you if they can't immediately out the Death X, which can happen, by the way, in this deck. This deck can out Death X somewhat easily, which is really funny to me. But going forward, I think it's better than Wormonze. I think it is. Honestly, it's actually kind of a toss-up. I thought about it just for like half a second more, because Wormonze can come out on your opponent's turn, which is devastating. Whereas Death X comes out on your turn, which is less devastating, because they usually already probably got all the bonuses and stuff that they would have wanted from those cards, and they'll probably be able to play around it a little bit better. You can't really expect the Monze, because it is like an ace card coming from hand if you delete the plat. Whereas you can kind of expect the Death X. Every time I play against someone, I kind of just sniff out the Death X. I assume they have it in hand, and then I'll play around it. You can play around it with like Chikuris, which is like fine. I think that Chikuris are good. I think playing some cards just for Death X though is pretty bad. So instead, I just kind of, if I think my opponent is going to be on Death X, I'll just take some slightly less optimal plays. Like whenever I play out like a Monze, I will place a Platinum underneath it. So that way if they Death X me, I just get the Platinum immediately, and then he's just chilling there. Or setting up so that way your Numemon X is never tossed, and then it gets deleted and you play out some plats or whatever Numemons you end up wanting to play out. I think it's pretty overrated though. Don't get me wrong, I think this is the reason it's the king is it's the most swingy. Like there are some board states where Death X cleans up, wins you the game, and you fucking take it home, and there's nothing they can do anymore. But if your opponent is smart, which we're assuming they are, they will play around the Death X, and it will do minimal to nothing. In fact, there are some board states where Death X just makes their board better, which is so funny to me. Anyways, Leviamon. Leviamon and Leviamon X Antibody. Those two cards, I guess we'll add in Biting Crush as well. Leviamon X Antibody, and Biting Crush. Individually, I think that Biting Crush is insane as a card. I think it's super insane against Numemon. I think that Leviamon is insane. I think it's super good against Numemon. And then I think Leviamon X Antibody, in theory, is fucking insane against Numemon. The problem is it's slow. It's kind of bricky. You only get like a couple checks with it. Like if you have all 3 out, don't get me wrong. If you have a Biting Crush, a Leviamon in trash, and a Leviamon X in trash, you're cooking. You're cooked. As a Numemon player, I'm like, oh, God, there's so much shit I need to fucking play around. Holy fuck. But if you got only 1 or 2 of them, it's a lot easier to deal with. And a lot of times too, sometimes Leviamon X won't even delete anything. Won't delete a single thing. Deletes a 3, 5, 7, and a Tamer. I don't play many Tamers in my deck, or at least I try not to anymore, because I think they're a little bricky. A 3, okay, it's a Chumon. We already stopped you from getting memory off the Leviamon, so I don't really care too much. a 5, a Monze, depends on the Monze. So Armor Purge Monze, doesn't matter. If it's a Monze with the on deletion underneath it, I don't really care too much. And a lot of times, they'll just end up being plats. You can't delete the plats, and then you're gonna delete a level 7, okay. Merciful mode stops that from ever happening. Rune mode gives you another -5, so you're probably at -10 at that point. That very well may end up letting us delete the Leviathan very quickly if we wanted to, which we may not even want to put it back in trash. And then a Quartz, okay, that does suck. That does. Death X, that does suck. But I mean, I don't know. I've never really super impressed them that they have like the goat nuts, dude. Unless they're fucking insane. We'll just like put it, I think comfortably. I think if it's the nuts, it's here. I think if they have all 3 in there, the goat, it's for sure up here in game winning, somewhere in this area. I don't think it's better than. Ooh, it could honestly with the goat draw could be better than Venus. But I think on average, it's like here. I think on average, it's like solid. Slows us down for sure. But yeah, I will see you guys in part 2, or the second half of this video, where I will kind of go over some opening plays that the deck will do, and ways to kind of deal with it. Alright, what's up, gang? Welcome to the second half of the video. If you guys made it this far, I would love a like and a subscription, but, you know, you don't have to if you don't want to. As well as if you want to leave a comment mentioning maybe any tech cards that you think have worked really well against Numemon, or if in this half of the video I go over some kind of like plays or my theories about the deck and how to beat it, and you think I maybe miss out on something that you think is very crucial, please leave a comment. Let me know. To start things off, I need to explain what the game plan of Numemon is. Numemon is a tempo deck. Its goal is to control the board in such a way that it can kill you. It can go very wide and very aggressive very quickly, or it can stun you and slow you down. It all just depends on what your game plan is. Numemon is a very adaptable deck in that way. If you're trying to kill them really quickly, they can go into a bunch of Venuses and kind of slow you down to the point where you won't be able to stop them from killing you on the crackback. Or if you're just like a very slow control deck, they could do like a very like Uko Rush, low to the ground, try to kill you very quickly style as well. Both are super viable in this deck, and these modes also just kind of, it depends on the cards in hand, what you draw into, and what you're against. I think it really changes the play style, and you can lean more, or you can lean more into either side in deck building as a one player. So the lists aren't exactly stagnant. I think the majority of the lists is pretty similar throughout, but like the ratios on tamers, the ratios on options, the ratios on level 7s, the ratios on 6s, the ratios on 4s, the ratios on 3s, and the ratios on 5s are all significantly different between all the lists that I've seen, as well as like the tech cards that people are playing. I've seen people play Quantumon, I've seen people play no Rune mode, I've seen Merciful, I've seen Death X, I've seen Quartz, I've seen no Venuses, I've seen people starting playing the Shin Monzaemon. For the 5s, you can expect some people to be playing War Monze, some people to play a lot, some people to play a little bit, and some people to be playing none. In my deck list, I currently don't play any War Monze. People to be playing Digimon Emperor. There's just a whole lot host of things that people are able to play in this deck and see like good success. So there's a lot that you have to look out for. Unfortunately, that comes on your end, on the person you're playing against. Just make note of the cards that they're playing and try and think about what you would play in a deck, in the style of deck that they're trying to go for. Like if they're trying to rush you down consistently each turn, you could probably assume that they're only playing one to two level 7s in their deck, probably not too many else. Or maybe that they're playing a lot more of the rushing cards like Louis and Satsuki's and maybe Chimeramon to try and kill you secretly like an OTK. So those are just some things that you can kind of keep out for and watch out for. So as mentioned, killing your opponent is sometimes really difficult when you're playing against this deck. And so is getting rid of their stuff. So the way that you have to deal with it is that you have to attack them on certain like choke points. If anyone's ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, there's then you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, there are these things called hand traps. So hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh are like ace cards, but they can be used at more than just like the battle phase. For example, a very like popular hand trap is Ash Blossom. It stops your opponent from adding cards to hand. So like being able to ash like a Searcher Agumon would be like an example of like when you could ash your opponent. And so in Yu-Gi-Oh, it comes down to like, well, do I think ashing them here will be able to stop them from continuing their combo, or will it not make a big enough difference? And so a lot of times that you delete a Digimon in the Numemon deck, you're actually not making a huge dent in their game plan. And a lot of times, actually, by destroying their Digimon, you're actually giving them more value, more memory, and more cards in hand to play with, or more cards in trash to play with, which can be exceptionally dangerous. So I'm going to just show you a couple of the, I think the most conventional turn 1 play, if they're going first, and I'll try and show you the conventional turn 1 play if they're going second, as well as I'll try to go over like certain ways that they can promote and when they're vulnerable and when they're not. So starting things off with, let's assume you lost a die roll. The Numemon player will go first. They'll hatch into a Sunamon. All right, in their grip, all we really need to know is that they have a Uko, Platinum Nume, a Numemon, X Anybody, and a Jerrymon. These 4 cards present the strongest opening hand that your opponent can open with, ideally. It also leaves them exceptionally vulnerable. But we're gonna explain how that happens. So first, they're gonna go ahead and Digivolve into the back to Uko. They would draw a card off the evolution, but I don't care what cards they actually have in hand other than these 4. This one can be drawn, but as long as it's drawn by the next turn's draw. The next turn's draw is when it actually matters. So this one can stay here. Over the course of this combo, we're gonna draw 5 more cards. Draw for turn, draw for Evo, draw for Evo, draw for Egg, and draw 2 cards off the Jerrymon effect. But we'll get to that. Okay, so we Digivolve in the back. I'm gonna play Jerry for 3. Jerry will put you guys to 3, and then I'll pitch the Platinum to draw 2 more cards. So now this board seems relatively weak. It's a 2K level 4 and an Ukomon in the back. However, even from zero memory, if you somehow give them 1, the turn passes over to them, and then you steal a memory back from them, like say you play a Digimon Emperor, they can still go directly into a Ruin mode from here. Which is horrifying. That's a really scary thought. But let me explain. They're gonna go ahead and promote. Alright, let's say you have a Digimon Emperor, so they go to 2, and then you steal 2. They'll hatch. If they have a rookie, they'll Digivolve it here. But they still have 2 more draws to get that rookie. We'll Digivolve into Nume X. Nume X will draw for the evolution, and then we'll draw out the Sunamon. Nume X has the on-deletion effect. That lets you play out a Numemon from trash. We'll swing into your security. It's 2K, so odds that it dies are pretty high, depending on the deck that you're on. Assuming it does, Platinum will come out. And so at this point, if we want to Platinum Numemon, we can, to save 2 memory. Otherwise, from this position, we can just go directly into a Ruin mode. And this is an exceptionally threatening board on turn 2, immediately. And you may be thinking, okay, well, I mean, it's a Ruin mode. I can just play in the back for a little bit. But now they have a rookie in the back, ideally. They have a Ruin mode on field, which gives you another minus 5k. They will be getting more value off the Sunamons here and here, getting a bunch more memory off the Ukomon. Worst case scenario, they Digivolve into Ukomon in the back here, and things are very, very scary. So we're gonna like from that position, we're gonna rewind a little bit. This is the choke point right here. This is a guaranteed choke point for any Numemon deck that plays out a level 4 for 3. You have 3 memory to answer this level 4. If you can answer it, it puts them back on tempo by a lot, because they're not gonna be able to cheat out a level 4 without playing because they can't Digivolve on top of the Uko, so they have to play out another level 4, which is like super frustrating for them. They could skip right into a Monzemon, that's still giving you a lot more memory, and it's not the ideal play. So getting rid of this Jerrymon or any Numemon they play out like this is very, very crucial. Another really threatening play is if this was just a Nume X. This one's gives them less value, but it's more threatening in the fact that the next turn they can simply Digivolve into a Monzemon on top of this creature, and it will already have the inheritable of the on-deletion. They won't have the Platinum and Trash, but if they go into Monzemon and then the next turn they go into Plat, well, now it has 2 on-deletions, which will get the Platinum back and a Monzemon or a Numemon from hand, which is also super threatening. So at any point, you can stop them from gaining tempo by deleting their Jerrymon. They won't be able to get their stuff out. Now that's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, they do this, all right, and then next they promote. All right, let's say that they go to 2. You don't have a Digimon Emperor here because you didn't open cracked, but don't worry, they didn't open cracked either. They instead Digivolve for 3 in the Monzemon. They'll draw, they'll give something on your board, minus 3k, minus 1 security attack. Well, this creature is still deletable, all right? they get push you to 1, but I mean, let's say that they put you to 3, you play memory setter for 4, you now have a rookie and a memory setter, and now you're back at 3. If you can't answer a level 5 without the Nume X underneath it, I think you're in a very precarious position, because this is I think another choke point where your opponent didn't open Insane, they didn't have the Nume X in hand immediately, so now they're going to probably try and go into a level 6 after this. Notable level 6s they can go into are the Platinum, which is good. It's for sure good. It's a 1-cost Evo if they activate the effect. And then on deletion play out in their Monzemon from hand. It checks for 2 security. It can go into one of their powerful level 7s. So it's super important to kind of stop them from getting to this point, because they'll start getting their value train up, and especially because they'll be able to get their Platinum in Trash, which means that now any future on deletions that play from Trash will be playing out the Platinum most of the time. Not all the time, mind you. There are certain scenarios where you don't want to play out the Platinum and you still want to play out level 4 Nume, but this is one of the most of the time they will be playing out the Platinum. So stopping them from getting that into the Trash early on is really impactful. So deleting this level 5 stack, prioritizing it over the Ukomon may seem counterproductive, but it's actually the way that you efficiently stop your opponent from being able to produce high tempo plays, especially really early on. Because once they establish themselves, I think most decks are going to have a hard time dealing with them. All right, but let's assume, they did have the nuts. They had the nuts, but they didn't have a Platinum, so they didn't put the Platinum in Trash. They instead just go into Monze, the Nume X underneath it. Well, now our only answers to comfortably deal with it are de-evolving, bouncing it, because we really don't want to delete this, right? Wrong, actually. Yes, deleting it doesn't get rid of the whole problem, but they don't have a Platinum in Trash in this scenario. I think you should always pay attention to what your opponent has in Trash when you play it against this deck. Always manage their hand size and what they have in Trash. Because if your opponent has, say, 5 cards in hand, and you've seen like 2 or 3 of these the RB1 Monzemons go through, realistically, they're not going to be able to play out another memory Monzemon, stealing turn from you, and also getting the security attack plus minus in the minus 3k DP to one of your Digimon. I've seen a lot of people not swing into or delete my Platinums when I don't have really good targets in hand to play them out. I think consciously looking at what your opponent has in Trash, the amount of cards that they have in hand, is super impactful in the way that you actually play against this deck. I've also had players not delete a stack like this, even though I have nothing in Trash right now. Like, let's say Jerry whiffed, and I didn't have any Digimon, and I drew Numemon for turn, the Nume X for turn, I Digivolve on top of it, and then I go into the Monzemon. Like, yes, I can play out the Nume X again, or I can play out the Jerrymon again, but now those are just a 4K, a full level 4 2K body. And I've already proven that I'm having a hard time getting like a Platinum in Trash or something meaningful to get the deletion off. So now they're just kind of bodies that are trying to stay on board to be impactful. And the reason we delete the level 5 over the level 3 here is because even if, let's say, for example, we delete this, all right, and they play out the Nume X again, all right, and then, the thing you use to delete it puts them back to like 4 or something. You promote with the Uko, so we'll just have like another guy here. We'll go to 2, we'll hatch again, and it's like, okay, well, now what did they do? They've already shown that they had to Digivolve on top of it with a Monzemon. That means they need another Monzemon now. And a lot of the time, if they have no Protoform, they can't go into Monze X comfortably. It'll just be 3, Digivolve for 3 to draw 3 cards, which is fine. That's okay. But it's not ideal because you're not getting the effect, so they need a Protoform for that. Chimeramon is an option, but what are you going to put underneath from your Trash here? Nothing that you would really care about. Some people may be playing some of the BT14 Monzemon, so they'll have more Monzemons in hand typically. But even then, it doesn't feel fantastic. Maybe they go into a War Monze, but if you don't have anything you want to Digivolve, and you're still passing turn, you're not able to keep turn in that scenario. The only way you can keep turn is if you have another Ukomon in play. So let's assume they have an Ukomon in play. Well, I can go for 3 here. All right. This in turn shows, like, we'll draw 3 cards. And drawing 3 is a little scary, by all means, because you draw for the Digivolution, then draw for both Sunamons. And that's horrifying, mind you, because that means they can draw into pieces. They want to keep drawing into their pieces. And then they draw for 3 into the Platinum. They draw a card, and then depending if they pitch, you can also figure out whether or not they have cards in hand. If they're choosing at the pitch, that means they either have 1 or 2 like targets they want to keep in hand, or no targets. Because realistically, if you are able to put your opponent to 1 in the case that you don't have a memory setter, they would do it every time. They would do it almost every time. I would do it every time personally. Just to kind of choke your opponent out and give them as little options as they can. And so in this scenario now, this stack is super difficult to get rid of, super scary to handle, and it means like it's just hard to actually comfortably delete this, because even deleting it now, the platinum will come back out, and you will also get an on play. And if they have a Monzemon or a Numemon in hand, they'll get that. Let's say this Numemon and this is Satsuki, and it's like, okay, well, great. I deleted them. It took my turn to delete their level 6. Satsuki will come out. I'll promote again. I'll get another memory off of the Uko, another memory off the Satsuki. And if I have another Uko out, I'll get another memory. Like, I'll start racking up incremental advantages, and now I have 5 attackers on field, which is horrifying. And then I have level 7s I can go into. I can start going up level 5 chain again. And you can see how quickly this deck can get out of hand. And all of this is stopped as long as you keep paying attention to what your opponent has in trash, their hand, and their stack itself. Cards that you are always looking out for are Monzemons in trash, Platinum Numemons in trash, and Nume X's. If they have a Nume X, the stack becomes significantly more difficult to get rid of. They can go into level 7s very quickly if they end up putting the platinums in trash. They have enough Monzes in trash. Maybe they don't have enough Monzes in hand to actually make a platinum effect worth it. Like, these are all things you have to consider. So now I will also kind of explain Monzemon as like a whole. This card's threatening by itself, mind you, because there are other powerful level 6s aside from the Numemon, Platinum Numemon that can be played, such as Quantumon or Venusmon, both of which are powerful removal or powerful stun tools that make actually certain decks just completely unable to play properly. So always keep in mind that if your opponent is able to get a Monzemon out for 3 memory, so if they have a level 4 out and there's no Nume X that you get to worry about, if they have 3 memory, if they can get 3 memory during their turn, going to 0 for the Monze on top of the Nume, and then giving you 4 to play out a Quanto or a Venus, can slow you down and make it exceptionally difficult to actually deal with them in a meaningful capacity. And then going on top of those cards into like a Ruin mode can also be exceptionally devastating. So I think just keeping that in mind going forward would be really impactful in understanding that. But that's turn 1 going. That's one of the turn 1 plays that you'll probably see the most of. A couple other turn 1 plays are like a Louis and an Ukomon in the back. So Uko will promote, leaving you at 1. This play is a little weak in the fact that you are missing out on a level 4, so you actually can't threaten too much in that sense. But Ukomon by itself is a powerhouse of a card. Being able to get a bunch of Sunomons out onto the field means that you'll be able to start getting a lot of incremental value by digivolving other Digimon around it, as well as being able to hatch out multiple Digimon. Is really scary. So like this is worst case scenario. Let's say you put them back, you play just a training for 2, put them to 1. Okay, well, they digivolve in the back to another Ukomon. They play out another Louis. They gain 3 for Louis. They gain 1 off of Louis, 1 off of Louis, 1 off of Uko, 1 off of Uko. They hatch, they digivolve in the back again. Well, now they have a Uko lineup going on. Then they can just play a level 4 for 3, get some value. You're at 1 again. You have a training and you have a rookie. And they're now threatening 3 attacks, a bunch of value off the Sunomons, getting value off the Jerry. They pitch a platinum. It's a very threatening style. Again, if your opponent does the Louis Uko play, you have to make a very conscious effort to actually deal with the Ukomon, because the Ukomon by itself is a very threatening card. I think I would still prioritize getting rid of the 4s over an Ukomon a majority of the time, but not every time. Those are the things that you kind of have to like think of in the moment of like, what am I most afraid of? Is by choking my opponent to 1 more impactful than getting rid of the body on the field? And sometimes it is, again, looking at your opponent's trash. How many Monzemons do they have left in their deck? How many Nume X's do they have left in their deck? How big is their hand size? What are the odds they have those things? What can you afford to play around? Can you delete both of them? If you can, yes, that's the correct play for sure. Deleting both of these cards will completely stop your opponent from playing, and they're going to have to take a whole other turn to try and set up again before they can try pushing forward. And if you have consistent deletion, even if they keep playing out Jerry's, they're not going to be able to ever digivolve it correctly onto the Nume X, so they're going to have to wait a little bit, probably hold back, digivolve in the back, maybe get some incremental value by playing out like a Satsuki for like hard play or something of that nature, and going from there. Anyways, doing a really common turn 2 play. The trick against this deck is to never give them exactly 3 memory. 3 or more memory is devastating. More than 3 is awful. More than 3 is awful. You never want that. But 3 is kind of like the cutoff. Some hands, 2 is the cutoff, but a majority of hands, 3 is where they will be able to get the most value out of it. So what I mean by that is for example, I'm playing against a Numemon opponent. They do the Jerry play. They pitch Platinum, and they Digivolve into Uko in the back. That's so scary. But they put me to 3, which means that I, in turn, I don't need a Jerry. It can be any Numemon. So let's say I play this guy for 3. No effect. You know, I've hatched. I'll Digivolve into the Ukomon. It'll get kind of things going. But the Numemon itself doesn't matter too much. All right. I understand that in this matchup, tempo is king. Tempo is super, super important. So being able to Digivolve for 3 into the Monzaimon, giving them minus 3k, minus security attack plus -1, will delete their Numemon, and then we will be able to kind of push forward from here. Your opponent promotes. They play out another Numemon for 3, so now they're at 1. And then they go into their own Monzaimon. That's fine. We don't really care too much about the security attack -1. Now we can go into our own Venus, which fully stops their plays. We can do a whole host of things to kind of deal with that issue. Let's say they do Numemon, Nume X, Monzaimon. That's a little annoying. I will admit. They'll put us to 2. Our Uko will promote to 3. So we have minus 3k, -1 security attack here. We'll hatch. We'll Digivolve in the back. And from this position, we kind of try and figure out what we want to do. What do they pitch? Do they have Platinum and Trash? No? Okay. Then I can just simply I can go into a Monzai X here to try and delete their Uko, or I can play out a Digimon first. Let's say I have another Numemon in hand, so I can just play out like a Numemon or a level 3 rookie. And then I can go to Monzai X and I can delete their Monzaimon itself and try to stun it for a turn. So essentially I delete their stack and then they have to play out a Digimon of some kind. If they have a Platinum and Trash, I would not do this play. I would not recommend that in the slightest, because now they can still turn from me and they will have priority with the level 6 with 2 memory and an Ukomon. So they'll probably promote. If they have another Ukomon, they'll promote gain another memory. Going to 4. They're 1 memory away from being able to keep turn with the Ruin, but they probably won't be able to do that. So with the Platinum, I mean, realistically, they could still just swing into security, right? If the Platinum gets deleted, they'll get 2 memory off a Monzaimon in hand. They can then Digivolve directly into a Venus, putting me to 3. And now my board is stunned. I can't do anything anymore. So I think trying to keep turn is really, really impactful. So, you know, put them before 1, 2, and then here we go. So we'll go back a little bit where we win time. I just had to do it in my head real quick. So, a couple plays that you can do from here. You can put your opponent to 1 by playing a Venus. Any on any Digivolving effects will no longer activate, so they can't Venus you in response. They can't give you Platinum memory. So, you know, we put them to 1. They can't keep turn by Digivolving into Platinum, because Platinum's at 8 would be a Digivolving effect. So they would just then put you to your 2, and then you could promote and get the whole shebang there, and just kind of start dealing with things from there. They can't Ruin mode you, even if they could get into a level 6, because Ruin mode again is an on Digivolution. So you'll be able to more actively play around the on deletion on the next turn. Speaking from an outside perspective, assuming that we're not playing Numemon here, right? Assuming that we're trying to do something that you know, we don't want to play bears, we don't play slugs. Let's say we're playing Red Hybrid, okay? What does Red Hybrid really need to do in that scenario? Again, doing your best, assuming they go first. All right, they'll put you to 3. Any way that you can get a Burning Greymon that will delete their level 4, super impactful. Even if that means playing a Takuya for 3, and then Digivolving into the Burning Grey that pops the level 4. For 1 or 2 memory, I can't remember the exact cost of it. Assuming it's 2, we'll assume the worst that it's 2. It's 2. Ukomon promotes. They'll gain a memory, go to 3. They can then play out the Numemon and then give your thing minus 3k, -1 security attack. But that's okay, because now you can kind of work up that line. Go into like another Burning Grey to delete the Ukomon, which would be super impactful, or going into your Alda and then trying to just push into Emperor, and then Emperor deleting the Monzaimon will slow them down a lot as well. I think that trying to understand that you can't just play your game plan and hope that it works out all right. I think that just trying to get like incremental value with your tamers is a surefire way to try and lose the game. because if you're giving them time to set up before you kill them or before you try and fight for board, you're going to lose. Even if it means that you're losing out on a lot of value, like you're not able to search as much with flame mons, you're not able to cheat out your tamers as much as you would like, you're not able to kind of get the value off of the on deletions of like your Goonies or your and things like that, or your flame mon inheritables. Sometimes you have to understand that the incremental trades are what will, in the end of the day, win you the fight against Numemon. Another really popular deck right now, for example, Fenrir Lugamon. All right. Well, what's the goal against your deck here? Well, again, being able to fight for board is really important. They go first. They put you to 3. Okay, you hatch, you fall in the back to Luga. Well, there's not really great ways to actually handle the Numemon on board. Like, yes, you could play Hell Luga, and I think at end of turn it'll pop, and then you could pop the Nume, which feels really bad, honestly, because you will give your opponent, I think, like 4 or 5 memory, because I think it's a 7 cost, but I could be wrong. Don't hold me account to that. But also, you're slowing them down. So even if you do give them 4 or 5 memory, like from this position, they now have to play out another Numemon for 3. Which, worst case scenario, they're either at 5 or 6 now from the Ukomon effect. But not every opening hand will have Ukomon, just to clarify. So, they could still be at 4 or 5. So they go, they'll play a Numemon for 3, and then they have to either Nume X or Digivolve for 3, putting you to 1. You could then promote your Luga, and then Luga effect to attach like one of your tamers to it to gain a memory, going to 2. And from this position, it's not horrible. You can start swinging in if it's the red-purple one to try and delete the Ukomon, and look out for things like that. I think that trying to fight for board really, really early on is one of the main ways you actually kind of keep this deck down. Obviously, if you're going to a long grind game against them, it's going to be really difficult, but I think learning when to actually attack them in the long grind game is also really impactful. Understanding like, hey, what do they have in trash right now? Can I play around anything in particular? Like, do they have like 2 Nume X's underneath this Chimeramon? Okay, sick. Well, they have 2 Platinums in trash. That's 4 memory that they can gain back immediately. I will lose turn, so I probably shouldn't delete the Chimeramon until like I'm ready to pass turn, essentially. And kind of just understanding that play style of like, well, what can I play around and what can't I play around? Or deleting a Platinum, for example, and recognizing, oh, well, my opponent only has 3 cards in hand. And they've seemed really aggressive to try and get like more draw, but I've been doing a great job of stopping that. So realistically, with these 3 cards in hand, I can delete the Platinum and not have to worry too much about them playing out a immediate fucking Monze to gain 2 memory. Or even if they do, not all of their Mons gain memory. Sometimes they're stuck in hand with X's. Monze X's don't have any on plays. They're just good value trains for the next turn. So if they don't need to take the memory from you, they can just play out the Monze X and then next turn be able to delete maybe something you have. Understanding like the amount of memory you're giving them is also really important. Most of their hard play stuff comes out for 3. It's really hard for them to just get free play effects on their turn, which is also why I rated Crimson Blaze and Pillamon and Gatsumon not that highly. It's because you have to be a bit more versatile in the way that you use them. A great way that I, as a Numemon player, play against Numemon is actually, let's say I go Jerry, they go Jerry, but they don't have a Monze to delete my Monze. Well, I go for 3 into the Monze, and then for Monze X for 0. I'm at 0 memory. I go Monze X for 0. I play out a Pillowmon. I can delete their Nume X on field or delete them with the Nume X underneath it. They can't get any of the on plays or the on deletions out of it. And the Pillowmon works actually really effectively for me because most of the time when I start clearing or systematically dealing with my opponent's board, they're not actually going to be able to deal with my stacks to get the effects of the Pillowmon to actually hurt me. And Pillowmon's only a 2k body. So I'll be able to swing into security a lot more comfortably and not have to actually worry about being deleted by my opponent with the Pillowmon on field. In worst case scenarios, I can also Digivolve on top of it using the yellow-black Numemon as a way to get rid of it. So that's a way that I personally use Pillowmon that I think gives it a lot more value because it does play out the Pillowmon for free while also threatening deletion on a stack that has stuff. If you're just playing out the Pillowmon, they don't really care too much because they can either answer it with one of their myriad of answers being any of their Mazes or a Ruin or something along those lines and be able to deal with that while still having their bodies on board. I think that people are very obsessed with the on deletion effects being impactful, and that's because they are, but they're only impactful because they just can't be answered. Your opponent actually isn't typically proactively using their on deletion effects because they're really inconsistent in the way that they're used. Like if this had 8k, had an on deletion, and I swing into you, I will check twice. Odds are that it does get deleted, but I can't guarantee that it is. It's an 8k body. I could run into 2 rookies, I could run into a tamer and an option. There's a lot of things I could run into that actually doesn't deal with this body, and so now I'm suspended, and I have a deletion underneath it, and there's not much I can do. Which feels really bad sometimes, especially if like I need like a blocker or something. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind, is like recognizing that just stopping them from playing by effect only really matters on your turn. It doesn't matter as much on their turn. Of course, if you did like Crimson Blaze and then I still swung into security for 2 checks and it did get deleted, I wouldn't get the on deletion to play it by effect, which would hurt a lot. But again, that more so plays into your opponent messing up rather than the card being good. If your opponent doesn't recognize that they're going to get their on deletion stopped, they should just not swing in, except the fact that they're going to miss out on 2 checks, and then instead go into like a Venus or a Platinum or something else to kind of pass turn to conserve their stuff. Your stuff is missing now, like your Crimson Blaze is no longer in effect, and I still have the on deletion, and my stack is just more threatening in a lot of ways. So yeah, I've explained a little bit how to do the Pillamon. I've explained a common turn 2 play against other Numemon. Their turn 2 play would just be typically, let's say, Ugo in the back. You put them to 3 because you didn't have another choice. They can then just play out a Numemon, go into a Nume X, going into a bear. And from this position, they're in a pretty solid foundation. Again, like I said, you can delete it. Let's say they played out the Jerry instead of the Numemon here, and they instead pitched the Platinum. Well, now you're in a pretty precarious situation. And they're pretty locked into the board now. This is a very difficult stack to actually get rid of through a meaningful way. Because if you delete it in any way, they get the Platinum out, and then you have to contend with a level 6 now after having to delete a level 5 on your turn 2 with 3 memory. And then you have to delete a level 6. That can then go directly into another level 5, which can then get a on deletion effect underneath it from the Nume X and Trash. And that's why the deck is so sticky, because now it just feels like you did nothing. It feels like even if you could get rid of this guy, all right, he'll still 2 memory from you. So let's say for 1 memory, you somehow end up deleting the Numemon. I don't know any way that you could do that, but let's say hypothetically it was possible, and then the Platinum comes out, it steals 2 memory from you. Well, then for 1 more memory, you put them to 1 and you delete the Platinum, which again, that's insane. You're fucking cracked for doing that. The Platinum goes back to Trash. That plays out a Numemon from hand, happens to be either the BT14 or the RB1. Well, now they can place the Nume X from Trash underneath it, gaining 2 memory, promote the Uko, gain another memory, and now we're right back where we were. And now if they have another Platinum or a Monze X or a Venus, you're in a horrible position. And so I think those are just kind of things that you just really need to watch out for. Those are just awful times that can happen to you if you're not paying attention and like the way you do it. But putting your opponent to 2 memory changes things a lot, because again, now they have to either play out one of their Jerrys or one of their just Nume X's to actually threaten any meaningful value going forward. And that will put you directly to 1 memory. They won't actually be able to make any meaningful progress with that. And so it'll be really detrimental for them going forward. So I think trying to keep them off of 3 memory as long as possible is super important. Of course, once they have the level 4 out, they don't care too much about 3 memory. 2 memory is more so their cutoff point, and especially if they have the Uko in the back, even if you put them to 1, they'll go to 2. They can protoform into a Monze X, or they can just go straight into a Monze X, potentially deleting one of your annoying floodgates, or just, giving one of your Digimon -1 security attack to kind of slow down the game a little bit. I think that's a really difficult thing to deal with. I think that if your opponent sees Ukomon, their chances of winning go up by a significant margin, and you should look into getting rid of it as like second priority. Priority number 2. I think getting rid of any level 4s that come out really early on is priority number 1. Towards like the mid or late game, deleting a level 4 doesn't have as much impact as you'd think, unless your opponent is like super far behind. Like if this is my only board and you're at like 4 memory somehow, you gain like a memory off of like a tamer or something after I put you to 3. Like, yeah, obviously this level 4, it's their only lifeline at this point. For sure, send it to hell. But like if they have like, a Numemon, the Nume X, the Numemon, they've got like a Monzemon with a Nume X underneath it. Like deleting this Numemon's not gonna be the cutoff point anymore. We're past that. From this position, cards like Fanglong do come up a lot, because now they don't get any of their on plays. They can just swing in, give depending on if they have a platinum in trash, which is something that you actually need to keep up within the Deva meta or in the Deva matchup. For both sides, for Devas, you have to make sure that you constantly have 3 in trash. So that way, if they do have platinum and they have a Nume X, they can't cheat around your Fanglong effect by playing out the platinum, who's a 9k, which will get around only 2 trashing of the or bottom decking of the 2 Devas that you have with the Fanglong attack or the on play. So understanding that even though you don't need to do minus 12k, if they do have a platinum in trash, you do need to make sure to do that. And I'm actually playing Merciful mode in my deck because of that matchup and because of the Numemon. It works really well into Numemon because it bottom decks the on deletion before it can actually go off, which is super impactful. But it also, against Devas, takes cards out of the trash. Against Devas, even if I have a wider board, I may not swing in beyond what is like a reasonable amount, because I don't want them to get more cards in trash to actually be able to play out their Fangalong cheaper, but also to be able to delete my board in a meaningful capacity. So like in this case, let's assume this is my board coming back to me. My opponent has nothing on field. They've got nothing in trash. I think I could comfortably swing in once. I don't think I could comfortably swing in twice. I think swinging in twice will then give them a possible second Deva target in the trash for them to put back with the Fangalong. So understanding like what's going on there. I know this is supposed to be how to beat Numemon, but I just kind of yap a lot because I really love this deck, and so thinking about like ways to beat the decks that you're going to find is like really fun for me. But in the Deva matchup, I think understanding like finding the 1-cost option cards is super impactful, super important, and always seeing Fanglong. Even playing Fanglong for 15 is not bad against this deck as long as you have 3 in the back. So somehow you're able to get 5 memory. Being able to play Fanglong, putting them to 10. And then bottom decking 3 cards will completely wipe their board, and they will not be able to come back from that in a single turn, even with 10 memory. I don't think there's a single hand that can kill you from 10 memory in a reasonable capacity. Obviously, if they have like Ukamon, Louis. All right, that's 3 checks right there. Plus like 2 Satsukis and then 2 of the Rusher Numemons, and then a Proto form and a Manzai X. Like, yeah, that will get you somewhere. Because, like, we Digivolve in the back, we play Louis for 3, going to 7, we promote, gain 2 memory, Digivolve in the back to Uko, play out with Louis, promote, going back up to 8, Digivolve in the back to Uko, play out a Louis, going down to 5, going back up to 7, playing out the rushing Numemon for 3. Satsuki will go ahead and place itself out. Rushing Numemon again for 3. We're now at 1. Rushing Numemon will go ahead and play itself out. And that's 5 checks right there. And then we just swing into security for 2 checks, and then like Chimeramon for game. After the other 3 Ukos. Like, those are like options, quote unquote, of like how you could win the game from like, 9 memories all we really needed for that. Or I guess 8 memories all we needed for that, technically. But like, let's be fucking for real. All right, that's not gonna happen realistically. There's no like reasonable world where that happens. So I think that you shouldn't play around that in particular. So like hard playing the Fanglong, I think just makes sense. I haven't played too much against Blue Hybrid or against Blue Flare, but in my hypothetical world, if they do the Numemon on turn 3, or I mean on turn 1, not the platinum. Let me just look at these fucking cards. They do a Numemon and they do an Uko in the back. Stunning the Numemon is still impactful because they can't trade into your security with the 2k Nume X. So even if they have it, it's really annoying for them to deal with. And you can start stunning or source stripping them. Your opponent only has 4 to 6, in my opinion, inheritables that give blocker. And they're all trapped on their level 4s, and some of them are locked behind Numemon and Manzaimons, meaning that they can only block with Manzaimons and Numemons. They won't be able to block going forward. So fully stunning them, so that way they can't suspend on their turn, stopping them from actually interacting with you in any meaningful capacity, is a totally viable game plan. Again, just kind of trying to stop your opponent from doing their game plan, I feel like is much more impactful than just trying to ignore them. Think of it as if like your house kind of starts smelling a little weird, and you're like, well, I'm getting used to it, it's like whatever. But the moment you bring someone in, depending on how long you've ignored it, it's gonna smell awful in there. You should always take the chance to like clean up your house a little bit. Take out the slugs, take out the little trash, the little bears that are infected with ooze, take them out to the bin. Let them go. Before I go, I'm just trying to think a little bit about if there's any other impactful plays I want to think about. Because, like, for example, like War Greymon, you know, you can swing in, you can raid into them. But this is, again, their turn 1, so realistically, as a War Greymon player, you're not going to be able to do this very quickly. And then, like, even raiding into them for, like, the security checks, like, again, like, I'm sorry, if you're going into War Greymon raid, you're probably at 1 or 0 memory. If you delete a Monzaemon stack, like, yes, you'll get a check in, and you'll delete the stack, but if they have a platinum, they're going to still turn from you. And then they'll probably be able to deal with your stack, unfortunately. I'm sorry. There's a lot of ways. And I know that people are like, oh, well, like, only Monzai X and Monzaemon actually have any DP reduction. And it's like, yes, that's true. But Monzai X can delete upwards of, like, 15k DP uncomfortably. We can hit 10k pretty comfortably. 12k? Alright, we can do that for sure, depending on the hand that we're given. Depending on our trash, depending on what we got going on. Even just like, for example, going 2 memory here, right? Whatever. Alright, we'll say we're at 3. Opponent Uko, go to 4. Digivolve the Nume X. Actually, well, in this scenario, actually, my apologies. We were talking about the Monzaemon that got deleted and played out a platinum. So we have a platinum. From this position, we don't even need to do anything like that. We could just quartz, or we could just ruin mode and feel very comfortable existing with just that as our play, or even just going into like a merciful mode. We won't be able to delete your stack, which I think that's the worst play to do, in my opinion. So I think quartz or Death X or the Ruin Mode are like the best 3 places there. But if you're able to get to a point where you have a full raid stack and they only have a Monzaemon with a Monza X underneath it, you're in a good position anyways, I still think. But again, just making sure you watch the trash and where the memory gauge is at, and understanding that you're probably going to be losing 2 memory. But you can still play into it depending on if their hand is small. Like I said, let's say they have 2 cards in hand, well, they're probably not going to be able to pitch something comfortably without falling behind in a lot of value. Stun, Source Stripping is really good. De-Digivolving has cost me a game before, where, you know, I'll have I'll play this guy for 3, or I'll play this guy for 3. Doesn't matter which one. They both come out to the same. And then I promote the Uko. Let's say I go to 2. Well, if I digivolve into a bear here, and you digivolve and then delete, I'm cooked. That's awful. Or same case here, where if you're able to digivolve this and then you delete, I'm cooked. Like it's a very awful case. Where I think the play was I went Numemon X Antibody, and then I played out a Jerrymon to pitch a platinum for 2. And I was like, well, now they can't comfortably delete me. Well, they ended up digivolving my stack and then deleting this guy, which was super annoying. And I actually ended up losing the game because of that misplay. The amount of tempo I lost there was devastating, and there was not much I could do about it. I think I ended up going into like a bear here for 3, which then it does nothing. It's just a -3k, -1 security attack, and like I'm able to get Venus's going off fine, but I'm still missing my loop. This guy would keep coming. Like I could continuously get this guy back with the platinums, the Monzays, putting them under him, or even playing him out instead of the platinums to digivolve on top of him. Like again, there's like a host of things, and so just stopping this card from being in play or doing things is super impactful. In fact, I would go so far as to say is if you have Grave Hate, I think this is a really important thing to actually mention for those of you who have like the Uber cats, or if you have to make a choice with your mercifuls. If your opponent has 1 and 1 each, they're probably playing 3 or 4 of this, and they're playing 4 of this. You have to actually decide which one is more impactful to get rid of in this scenario. If you can Uber cat this away and they don't have 1 on field, all of their Monzaemons going forward will not have on deletion effects until they actually get to a platinum and they get another Nume X in trash. So being able to get rid of this guy in trash is also really, really important. And that's something that you need to actually consider going forward as a way to beat this deck. Grave Hate doesn't affect it too much because we don't need cards in trash to play like a lot of purple decks do. But the cards in trash let us play completely differently from the way that we normally would be able to play. I can give him on one blocker, on deletion, or if I just need a body underneath it, we can put this, but we normally won't. And if I do play on deletion, I can get another rusher out with a tamer for free and get the body itself back out so I can get something else on deletion, or I can get the platinum out, which will then I can pitch for memory and then also play cards from hand to keep this like little duo going with the Monzemons as like a little trifecta, working out really well. Really well, actually. Any other important things other than watching hand size, watching what's in trash, understanding that they can steal 2 memory from you at any given point, trying to fight for tempo where you can, and understanding when you've lost tempo, and instead trying to just play under them or trying to go over them are great ways. Recognizing that this deck plays an insane amount of cheap ways to get to lethal, from rushers that can give other Digimon rush, not necessarily themselves, to Louis that can give your rookies in a raising rush that work really well with their Ukos, to Chimeramons, which can put multiple Nume X's underneath it, from anywhere from 1 to 3 Nume X's, depending on what your board looks like. It's a very tricky thing to actually play around, but I think just keeping in mind consciously that if you leave a check up and you got 3 checks in security and they have a rookie in the back, well, that's 2 checks. They just need 2 more checks to kill you. If it's an Uko, they hatch. Depending on their memory amount, you know, they can go. How long am I sneeze? Pause. Sorry about that. I had to sneeze for a second, so I had to cut that out. But you know, they hatch in the back. They got an Uko here. We'll just go ahead and bring out some other cards. They got an Uko here. It doesn't matter. And then that's their board. Well, you got 2 checks right here. They promote. They go to 3. They'll hatch. They go ahead and like, did you all in the back for free? And then they go ahead and push up with a Louis. Suspend, gain a memory, another check. If they have Protoform, they can Protoform Digivolve for free into this guy. Swing into security after getting a draw off of that one. On deletion, if they have a rushing Numemon in trash, they can then play out the Satsuki. And now they have all 4 checks that they need to actually win the game. And so recognizing like, hey, fuck, even from 1 memory, just the fact that they had an Uko in the front and Uko in the back, immediately gave them the opportunity to like search for lethal. I think that the more Ukomons they have, the more likely they can actually kill you on their next turn. I think that if you were to take into account, let's say like 10 points are needed to kill you, all right? Every piece of security that you're missing is like 1 point, and every Ukomon they have is another point. So if you're missing 5 points in security, and their board is empty, and they have nothing in raising, if they've got an Ukomon and a Louis in hand, you're dead. Unfortunately, you're dead, because that's another point right there. That's 6 out of 10 times you're for sure dead in that scenario, because they can just Ukomon in the back, Louis, go to 2, Louis effect, Uko effect, go to 0, swing in for a game. And so understanding that Ukomon in this deck gives them a lot higher lethal potential, a lot higher value potential. And so as I talk more, I'm like, oh yeah, Ukomon is probably one of the best cards in this deck. And so I could see why people definitely wanted to get hit, because it is super annoying. And I think with the new Ukomon coming out, it'll also be super impactful. Not as a lethal percentage, but understanding that they'll be able to find their Nume X's more consistently, find their Platinums more consistently as things kind of go forward. But speaking purely in this current meta, I think this deck is one of the best decks, and you need to learn how to play around it. You need to learn what this card does, what this card does, what this card does. I think these are the 3 the 3 main cards of in archetype, and you should just already know what Ukomon does. Understand what their game plan is, being tempo, being controlling the board, being pushing for lethal in ways that you probably wouldn't expect. They have a lot of ways to push for lethal. A good Numemon player will not always activate the platinum effect. It will not always activate what effect is it? I don't even remember. The Monzai X on play effect. That one comes up a couple times as well. So like an example is I have a rookie in the back. I promote. I go into Monzai Mon X antibody, but I don't play out. Instead, I Digivolve in the back again, go for a Louis, promote, and then I play out a Numemon because the effect is mandatory. So now I'm getting an extra minus 2 KDP on the thing that I actually wanted. And understanding that if you actually want the most value going forward, you're going to need to do that in a meaningful capacity. Obviously, that was a misplay anyways. Like, you shouldn't do that in the first place. The ideal would obviously be before you Digivolve here, you Louis, right? You Louis, so that way then you can get the memory, the Digivolution extra draw here, as well as then you can play off this Numemon for free. But if we did do it properly, we're at 3, we do the Louis, we then play out a rookie, and then we can go in here and do another body right there, like that, to get extra value. And that's like the actual correct sequencing, but you know, sometimes like in the heat of the moment, you don't recognize the correct sequencing. That doesn't matter. This is completely off topic. I'm literally just yapping now. Sorry for just fucking yammering on. But yeah, if you have any other questions of like things you can play or like ways to play around these cards, again, just not deleting them if possible, understanding when you can delete them into trash, understanding what they have in hand, understanding how much memory they can steal from you, and things like that, and understanding that even if you do play out a 15k body, they need a very like specific board state to actually delete your stuff. Or they need their effects to be able to delete it. So like they have a hard time dealing with a Venusmon after it's triggered its effect, because well, now it's very difficult, as well as all the Monzaimons underneath the Monzai X's actually give security attack +1. So actually the Monzai X's will not get their on Digivolution effect. That's why Venusmon is really good against this deck. Same goes for Platinums. Platinums can't get their on Digivolution effect because they have security attack +1 underneath them. Their Venusmons can, technically, as long as it's not the first turn that your Venus has been out. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to me fucking yap. This is going to be a disgustingly long video. I meant to edit a whole bunch down. But yeah, leave a like and subscribe and let me know what you guys think.